Hello and welcome to the MB Om podcast, where you will learn to master the business of yoga with guests from around the world who have experienced becoming successful yoga teachers, studio owners, and much more. Now, here's your host, Amanda Kingsmith.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the MBOM podcast. I'm Amanda and I'll be your host for this episode. And today I have a really special guest today. His name is Mike Michalowicz, and he is an entrepreneur who has really learned firsthand. And he's published a few books called The Toilet Paper Entrepreneur, The Pumpkin Plan, and Profit First. And we talk a lot about the philosophies and the practices in these books, including specialization within your niche, standing out in a saturated market, and how to put profit first. And we relate it all back to the business of yoga. So when it comes to owning a yoga studio or being a yoga teacher. And Mike is just a wealth of knowledge. So I'm really excited to have him here and to share all of his advice and interesting experiences and firsthand growth with you. So without further ado, here's Mike. Well, thank you so much once again for coming on the podcast. It's super cool to have you here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's a joy to be here.
Yeah. Can you start by telling me a little bit about yourself, sort of your background with entrepreneurship?
Yeah, absolutely. So, my name is Mike Michalowicz, and when I graduated college, now I'm 44 now. So when I graduated college, I was under the mindset of getting the one corporate job. That's what my father had done. Get the one corporate job and live that job for the entirety of my life. And at least for me, that made sense. But when I graduated college, I couldn't get a job. Besides working at like a local computer store, that's what I ultimately got. But I couldn't get the corporate job that I could be a lifer at. And after working there for a few years, I was like, this really sucks. Like, This is not fun. And I remember the boss just sitting in the back room, smoking a cigar, counting money, while I was the kid hustling out in the shop trying to sell a printer or anything and getting my little $5 commission. And I went out for drinks with another guy that worked there one night and said, this is nonsense. Like, I'm smarter than the guy in the back. I work harder. These were all my beliefs then. And, this is not a recommendation, but for me, it's amazing what liquid courage can do. Cause I was throwing back beers. My voice started slurring, and I was like, "I'm smartest guy. I'm gonna start my own business." And the guy I was with is like, "Well, start your own business." I'm like, "Well, sounds straight. I'm gonna do it." And I quit drunk. I left a voicemail for the boss. I'm going, "You're an a-hole, and I'm working my butt off for you. I'm gonna start my own computer business and kick your ass." Well, after getting a ride home, the next morning I sobered up and realized what a grand mistake I made. Now, there's a little bonus to the story. I also got married and had a child when I was 23. That's when I started my business. And so, I had 3 mouths to feed. Mm-hmm. I was totally ignorant of what it took to start a business. And so I tried to plead for my job back, and the boss said, "Screw you. Your kids like you are a dime a dozen." And he goes, "I'm going to ensure you can never get a job around here because you're such a jerk." So now I burned, not only did I quit my job, I burned my bridge. So I was forced into playing into what I committed to, starting a business. And it took me about 2 years to really get it going. But what I found is fear, at least for me, is a hard but wonderful motivator. I was getting up at 5 a.m, working till 5 the next morning, just trying to sell any service to anybody. But during that period, fear started to slowly convert to a passion and love for building my own business. And now fast forwarding, I was able 8 years later to sell that company to private equity. Private equity means basically a wealthy purchaser or purchasing group buys the company. The company actually still exists today. Okay. Then I started another business in computer crime investigation, sold that to a Fortune 500, and started writing books about my experiences. Those were the bullet points of my highlights, and there's other ones too, but way, way, way more failures. And so I decided to write about the failures and what I think I could have done to fix them, and the successes and how I think I could emulate them, and to start interviewing dozens, which became hundreds, and now surveying and interviewing thousands of entrepreneurs and writing the unique ways that entrepreneurs achieve success, the unique, unexpected ways to do it.
Wow. That's such an incredible story.
And I don't recommend it. Like, don't go get drunk tonight and say, I'm starting my yoga studio. Like, don't do that.
Don't do it that way.
No.
Which way would you recommend doing it then? If it's not that way.
I have that kind of come to Jesus with yourself. Look into your heart. There's a lot of talk about passion. We need to be passionate about what we do. And what I've found, and I truly believe, is passion is not the element for identifying what you should do. It's actually purpose. And they're different. Passion is something we enjoy to do and get energy from. I play guitar, not necessarily well, but I play guitar and I'm passionate about it. It's fun. I like to research it. But it's not purpose. I don't think I'm having an impact on others or myself or develop myself through guitar. Now, we look at other musicians. Clearly, they're trying to move people. That their music is a way of speaking a language. So I believe we need to find purpose in what we're doing. And using myself as an example, and I'm not saying you know your purpose, and I'll give you kind of a tool that if you don't know your purpose, what to do. But for myself, as I was going through life, I thought my purpose was to make money. And so I was like, just grow. But it didn't seem like me making money fed or served anyone. It didn't serve the community, and ironically, it didn't even serve me. So I started asking myself, what is my purpose? And I came across it through a tough circumstance. After selling my second company to that Fortune 500, it was a company called Robert Half International that bought my company. And I got a check for roughly $1 million slid into my hand, and was at 35 was a millionaire, what I call a momentary millionaire, because then taxes came and that money.
Seriously, eh?
Oh my God!
Let's just take half of your income. No big deal.
Oh my God! It's unbelievable.
Oh, it's shocking.
Oh, I hate taxes.
Me too. It's tax season too, so.
Oh my God! I know.
Just the worst.
Oh, so. But what happened is, my bank account expanded, my ego really expanded. I now looking back became just a total dick. I bought the effects, like I had to have the cool cars and I had to have the big house and I had to be in the community club and the #1 club participant. Just really to show my trophies, if you will, of success. And, the dicky part though was not just that. I would look at other people and think I was better than them. So if you and I were having this conversation, rewind 10 years ago, and I'm like, well, Amanda's nice and all, but she really isn't the caliber of person I am. I mean, as just a total tool.
Yeah.
And, I think spiritually, it was time for me to learn a lesson. So over the next 2 years after selling my company, I actually lost all my money. I became an investor, a private investor in other startups. I sucked at it. I didn't know what I was doing. I was losing money, I was spending good money after bad. And it took me 2 years. My accountant called me basically suggesting I declare bankruptcy. I was out of everything. I didn't, by the way. I just didn't want to do that. I had to climb out of the pit I put myself in. Mm-hmm. But here was what I think is how my life's purpose revealed itself. I said, why am I really on this planet? And I realized that my life's purpose is to eradicate what I call entrepreneurial poverty. Many of us have the vanity of the top line thinking, how big's your business? How successful is your studio? How well is your travel business? Like, it's all about size and money we're making, but not the sustainability that we're bringing to ourselves and therefore our followers or our clients or our constituency. And so my life's purpose became to eradicate entrepreneurial poverty. I think that all of us need to say, what is our purpose? Why are we here? And then have our business be an amplification of that, a platform to deliver that. Now, for the last 8 years now, every morning when I wake up, I know why I'm here. I don't know if it's God-given or self-defined, but I really, really know why I'm here. And it gets me so motivated to have my business be the best form of whatever it is, to really care for others, for the books I write and the other things I do, to really, really deliver on that purpose. Instead of kind of running away from problems or running towards something, a purpose like magnetizes you. It almost pulls you forward. Even if I don't have the energy one morning to wake up and crank out work, I still feel motivated and pulled forward by this purpose. I think that's the key. Don't do it because you get drunk or whatever. Do it because you've defined or found a purpose.
Yeah.
And the last thing I just wanted to share, if you don't know your purpose is to seek out your purpose. Let it reveal itself.
Okay. And so just doing things that you enjoy doing to try and find that, or is that? Yeah.
That's exactly it. Like to explore the world. Like before we started doing this call, the little preamble we were talking and how you travel the world. I'm jealous of that. Not in a way that I'm envious of you. I'm jealous because I didn't explore in the world like I should have earlier on in life. Now I'm doing it, and it's my own version. You don't necessarily have to physically travel to places, but I'm constantly curious. I realize I know very little, way less than I thought I knew. So I'm constantly curious about you, about people I meet, about things I experience, about everything. And in that curiosity, I think we start finding our purpose. Like, what's the thing that you're more than curious about, but you become infatuated with, that just pulls you forward, that you need to learn about? Because here's the greatest irony of all. I believe when we find our life's purpose, what we need to contribute to society, to others, and contribution doesn't mean you're touching millions. It may be one other that you're touching deeply. But whatever we feel compelled to contribute actually is what we also need to master and learn for ourselves. I feel so compelled to eradicate entrepreneurial poverty. That's my little term I came up with for my purpose. Mm-hmm. That really, I also understand I need to permanently fix this for myself. This is going to be a life learning experience for me because this is something I need to reconcile internally. That's the irony. What we need to teach is actually what we need to learn.
Yeah, I love that. That's so amazing. Everything you were saying, I was just like, yep, like nodding along.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's super cool. And so tell me a little bit about your books. I was checking out your stuff and I was like, wow, he's, written about so much neat stuff.
Yeah. So I have, 4 books out there. The most popular is this one called Profit First. I'll explain what the other ones are first. So I wrote a book called The Toilet Paper Entrepreneur. That was my first book. It's a very edgy read. And it was designed, here's the irony. I actually wrote it for college students, male college students that were looking to start a company. Now, the reason I wrote it for male college students is when I wrote my book, I looked at my own life and said, after I graduated college, what did I need? Yeah. Well, I was a male college student. So I was like, okay, let me write for that community. So I actually kind of looked back at myself and wrote it for that. The concept is that when we have a lack of resources, it's to our advantage. The book cover of The Toilet Paper Entrepreneur is literally a toilet paper roll with just 3 sheets left. And when you look at the picture, I think all of us can relate to it. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of a very vivid analogy, but we've all navigated and survived that situation. It's not like you say, oh, God, I'm done with life now. I only have 3 sheets. I give up. No, you figure a way to get through the situation.
Totally.
Well, that's how entrepreneurship is. We don't talk about the dirty side of entrepreneurship. It's the lack of resources, the lack of money, the lack of contacts, the lack of experiences, which are actually your advantage. Because when you lack things, you are forced to become innovative, to find new ways to navigate it. So that's what the book's about. The irony in how it changed my writing career. Here's the first book I write. It's very clearly in my mind for male young college students, they're just starting a business. So I'm speaking at all these different colleges. And the first phone call I get about my book, I thought it was from one of the colleges I spoke at, that one of the students was calling me. It was his mom. And this woman says, I read your book because my son brought it home during college break and wasn't reading it. And the title was so bizarre, The Toilet Paper Entrepreneur, that I decided to read it. And she's like, it connected with me. And I found that my book, even though it wasn't intended for the mom entrepreneur environment, that's who it started resonating with.
Wow. That's so interesting.
Isn't it? Yeah. And this became a lesson for me too, is what we believe to be true, or what we believe to be our customer base, or we believe we're serving, the group we're serving, may not be who it is. I need to have the humility enough to say, I'm wrong. I could be wrong, and find out who the real community is. So I started getting calls from women in their 40s and 50s and 60s, women that had children in college. And I asked them, I'm like, first of all, the toilet paper entrepreneur is so bizarre, that title. How can you be connecting with it? And why are you reading this book? And why are you talking about it? And this was the next eye-opener. Women were starting to tell me, I'm re-entering the workforce. My children are now in and out of college. I was a stay-at-home mom, or I devoted a lot of my time to raising my children. Now I want to re-enter the workforce, and I've decided to start my own business. But as I'm starting my own business, my spouse is a verbal supporter, but an emotional detractor, meaning the husband, or the spouse, if you will, the husband in this case is saying, go for it, start your own business, that's great, but acting like you're destroying our family. All the last bit of savings is going into your stupid idea. It's this weird. So these mom entrepreneurs were saying, this is the first book I read that actually inspired me and felt like I was supported by somebody. And that was kind of the wake-up call that as I write my books, I need to do two things: provide education, but also connect with the reader in a way that it feels like it's a one-to-one relationship, and that it's supportive and motivating. I didn't really think about those components. They were just kind of naturally in there. And then my subsequent books, that's how I wrote all of them.
Okay. I like that. It's so interesting how you develop something that's so geared towards one market and it's picked up by a completely different market, which in a sense is like moms who are going back is almost the same sort of thing as college students. Like they're still on that they're a little bit lost. They don't know what they're doing.
Exactly.
So interesting.
I would say the parallels are like 90% the same, right? Like you said, lost, restarting, never done this before.
Yeah.
Intimidated. Don't have training specifically in what they're going to do or experience. But the little tweaks, and this is that make a world of difference. The little tweak was the college student was actually being rah-rahed along. The parents like, hey, congratulations on graduating college. Go for it. Follow your dreams. There was inherently the follow your dreams. For these mom entrepreneurs, it was like, if you follow your dream, you're hurting the family's dream. And so there was this weird dichotomy, being encouraged to contribute to the family financially and in other ways, but don't do it the way you want to do it. It was a small little difference. And for whatever reason, the toilet paper entrepreneur connected with that specific reason. And when I became aware of it, I became very conscious of it. And it ends up, by the way, it's not just mom entrepreneurs who have had that feeling of make money, but don't necessarily do it the way you want to do it. And so I was just aware of there's this community, and I had an innate ability that naturally spoke to that. And I think that's also been a lesson that once you find out something that you're innately capable in, don't ignore it. Expand on it. That's just a natural talent that you've been given. Leverage that. And it makes you different than everyone else. You know?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, I'm thinking about a lot of yoga teachers that I know and people who are in the yoga industry. And I feel like this only having 3 sheets of toilet paper is definitely something that's very prevalent in that industry.
Yes.
It's not a highly lucrative market for the majority of people. I'm wondering if you can just talk about a few of your tips that you have for people who are sort of in that situation.
Yes. So that's the majority of people I help and who I write for. Here's the irony. I fully believe there's huge opportunity. As I study different markets, I've worked with yoga studios, spas, wellness centers, all these different things. There's the poor majority and the financially healthy and wealthy minority. And I'm wondering what's the difference? What are the consistent differences that break you out of that check by check survival to a more of a thriving business? And you asked earlier about what are the books I wrote. I started writing to this specifically. So my second book is called The Pumpkin Plan. And what I realized in pumpkin farming, I know it may sound like a strange analogy, but in pumpkin farming, most farmers are ordinary farmers. What you'd experience like around Halloween is you can go down any country road anywhere in the U.S., probably anywhere globally.
Yeah.
And that's the season, the fall season. Those farmers are selling those ordinary pumpkins. Well, there's a small faction of farmers that grow colossal pumpkins. I don't know if you've ever seen them in the paper like this.
Yeah, those like massive ones that make like a front cover of a small town newspaper. Yeah, I've definitely seen that.
yes, those exact people. They grow these colossal pumpkins. So I started to study them. And what I found was nothing short of fascinating. The colossal farmer, she will grow a colossal pumpkin by changing the growing process just by a little bit. They change about 5% of the growing process, and the pumpkin automatically, organically responds with explosive growth. So I said, well, what are the things you changed? And what I found that they changed is the exact same things we need to change in our business. I'll give you, in the book, I outlined the 7 steps. I'll give you a couple key elements.
Okay.
The first thing is, they do start off with a specialized seed. They pick a seed that matches the climate, the soil content. You can literally go grow colossal pumpkins in Canada. You're from Canada, I believe, right? Originally?
Yep. Yeah, I'm from Alberta.
Alberta. Okay. So from like the northern parts of Canada, you can actually grow colossal pumpkins to the most southern parts of Florida. And the thing is, the climates are radically different. So you must match a seed or find a seed that matches the climate. Well, the translation to business goes back to what we were talking about earlier. What is your purpose? That's your seed, but what community, what climate does that serve? We got to match up those two. Mm-hmm. For me, once I found my purpose, I thought it was one community, college males. No, it's actually re-entering the workforce, entrepreneurial women. So that was the community. So I had to make that adjustment. Another thing, which was perhaps one of the most impactful things I discovered, was that in a colossal pumpkin farming scenario, as the colossal pumpkin starts to grow, other pumpkins will naturally grow on the vine. Now, if you're an ordinary farmer, you want quantity. You want as many pumpkins to grow as possible. You got to make all your money around Halloween. But colossal farmers, as little pumpkins grow, they actually cut off those pumpkins immediately because they know every second that little pumpkin's allowed to grow, that it's stealing water and nutrients and time and attention from the colossal pumpkin.
Yeah.
Well, here's the parallel to business that was the wake-up call. Most businesses try to serve all pumpkins. I bet you, for the folks listening in, if you think about your yoga studio, you probably have some clients that are wonderful. They pay you on time. They pay you well. They love your services. They share it with their friends. And then I suspect you have some customers that kind of suck. They're sporadic. They schedule an appointment. They don't show. They definitely don't pay on time. They complain about the service and they're never satisfied. Mm-hmm. And those people, those weak customers, take a disproportionate amount of our time with a redo work, give them a free session. We have to do collection calls and say, hey, what's going on? It takes an extraordinary amount of time. And then there's this one component we don't think about. They are an emotional weight. They're the ones when we try to go sleep at night, we're worrying about, oh my God, that one customer, I can't stand them. I hope they never come again, and yet they're going to show up tomorrow. And they consume our thinking time. Successful yoga studios, massage spas, all these different outlets I've worked with, all these different businesses, will actually have the discipline of firing their weak customers because it knows it frees up time and it frees up that emotional weight to think on how to grow their business and to cater more and more to their best customers. It sounds backwards, mm-hmm. but if you have weak customers, you have to quote unquote fire them, introduce them to a different studio, raise the prices so they don't return, so that you have the time to avail to your best customers who are the ones who are naturally referring you to others and introducing you to others.
Interesting. It's such a different concept from what I've always heard, it's like trying to make everyone happy. The customer's always right.
Yes. That's what my mom said. Treat everyone the same, Mike. Treat everyone equally. I hate to say this, but mom lied. She lied. Don't.
Mom can't always be right.
No, I guess not. And, in all seriousness, from a social aspect, of course, be kind to everyone.
Yeah.
But when it comes to business, you have to prioritize your best customers to the intentional detriment of your weak customers. There's a saying, the riches are in the niches. When you start catering to your best customers, they are circulating with people just like them. Like, Amanda, if I asked you to introduce me to your 5 best friends, I suspect they share very similar interests to you. I suspect they're very much like you. I suspect they're not couch potatoes. I suspect they're get out and doers. Yeah. Right? They're going to be like you.
Yeah.
So we flock together with people who are like us. Well, with our clients, our best clients are hanging out with other people just like them. Birds of a feather flock together. But if you're trying to cater to everybody, you'll continue to attract everybody and you get this mishmash. It's like the general practitioner doctor. If you try to cater everybody for a skin rash to a cough to whatever, you can only scratch the surface. But when you find out that cough is heart disease, the general practitioner refers them to the specialist. And the heart surgeon, is getting the best customers, if you will, the customers with a very specific need, knows how to cater to them, and they pay a premium for that service. Generalists, when it comes to doctors, they can't pay off their school loans. The specialist, the heart surgeon, is the one with the biggest house in town. And I'm not saying your aspiration is to be extremely wealthy, but there is riches in the niches. Your business can grow and be extremely sustainable and provide you with the lifestyle that you aspire to if you cater to a specific category. So that's what the pumpkin plan's about.
Cool. I like that.
But the most important thing, I think, for yoga studios, the best tip I have, and it feels like I'm almost promoting my book, so that's not my intention. But profit first, I think, is what could change. I'm convinced of it could change any business overnight. And this book came out of the realization that many businesses survive check by check. There was a study conducted by the SBA, the Small Business Administration, identified there's about 25 million small businesses in the U.S. How they define a small business, by the way, is if you do, I think it was $30 million in revenue or less, which absolutely is my business. I suspect everyone listening in, it's their business too. I suspect it's your business.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not making more than 30 million a year.
Yeah, me neither. And I never have.
Not even close.
Yeah, exactly. And I never have. I never intend to. I truly believe that revenue is vanity and profit is sanity. I think we need to focus on profit. But what was so interesting about the rest of the study is identify that 83% of small businesses, us, are surviving check by check, which means if the vast majority of yoga studio owners that are listening in now, 83% of them, if they don't get the money in this month, they don't have enough money to cover rent next month. Mm-hmm. They got to sell today to survive tomorrow. So it's very much a hand-to-mouth thing. And this is not limited to yoga studios. It's not limited to wellness communities. It is all small business, from lawyers to IT companies to music studios. All businesses are experiencing this. And I heard that statistic. I'm like, this makes no sense. Like, there's people with the courage and the intelligence to start a yoga studio, to find a space, run it, attract customers, handle the finances, sell services, market the business. Like, that takes a lot of courage. It takes a super amount of intelligence and drive. We can do all of this, but we can't figure out one little piece, how to be profitable. Mm-hmm. So my thought was like, what's wrong with humanity? Is there a chunk of our brain that got cut out, the profit part? Because it makes no sense to me. And so I started researching this out. One of my little side hobbies is behavioral psychology.
Oh, cool.
And well, yeah, my wife calls me nerd, but I appreciate cool better. And here's what I found. There is a behavioral mechanism. It's called Parkinson's law, actually. Nothing to do with Parkinson's disease. But there's a behavioral mechanism called Parkinson's law that dictates our behavior around money. And basically, in the traditional formula of growing a business, we follow what's called a GAP formula. It says sales minus expenses equals profit. That's the core formula. So you don't even have to know what GAP stands for. The core formula is you got to sell your services, then next step is pay your expenses and bills, and what's left over is profit. Here's the problem according to Parkinson's law, behavioral theory. What comes last gets ignored. That's what it boils down to. It's like saying, like when you were a kid and they picked teams, like I remember going to grade school. I remember the third grade kickball team, and they picked the two captains or picked players, and I would hate it because I sucked. I was always the kid picked last.
The worst.
Oh, God, it's like embarrassing. And then when the ball would come, I would always strike. Like, how can you strike out in kickball? I was that kid. I found a way to do it.
I think I did it as well, so don't worry.
Okay, thank you. But the lesson was clear. If you're the last, you're ignored. You're not desired. You're not wanted. What comes last gets ignored. It's like working with you, going to your studio, working with a yoga specialist and you announcing, hey, everyone, I want to welcome you. By the way, your health is going to come last. Like, you would never say that.
No.
You would say your health comes first. Your fitness comes first. Your body and mind come first. What comes first gets prioritized. What comes last in human behavior gets ignored. And we're told in the traditional formula to how to run our business is that profit comes last. Wait till year end and see how you do. Mm-hmm. It's the bottom line. We actually even use words of saying last, bottom, year end. What I explain in Profit First is we must put our profit first. And this isn't a egotistical, you've got to make money, greed kind of mentality. It's a behavioral theorem. If every time you make a sale, you immediately, the second that dollar gets deposited into your bank account, you immediately take a predetermined percentage, 5, 10, 15%, and allocate it toward profit, meaning you transfer that money to another bank account, maybe out of sight, out of mind. You will automatically adjust to run your business off the remaining money. Mm-hmm. But the profit, because you took it first, will be piling up. And so that's why I explained the book Profit First. But here's the one explanation that when people hear this, like, yes, I do behave according to Parkinson's law. And I guarantee it'll happen tonight. Tonight, when you go to brush your teeth, and you go in the bathroom, you pull out your toothbrush, and you open the drawer or whatever, and you pull out the tube of toothpaste. Mm-hmm. If it's a full tube of toothpaste, what I do, what most of us do, is you put a long bead of toothpaste on there, right? Yeah. And then you turn on the faucet to dampen the toothbrush, and maybe the toothpaste falls in the sink, and you look down and you're like, oh my God, that's disgusting. Like, there's all that bacteria and soap and just crust in the sink. I'm not touching that because I got my brand new tube of toothpaste, and you put your toothpaste in your toothbrush. But if that tube of toothpaste is almost empty, like, the whole game changes. You open the drawer, you pull out the tube of toothpaste, and you're like, oh my God, there's like nothing left. We start bending it over the corner of the sink and try to, we bite on the edge of it. Now, one little droplet of toothpaste on one bristle hair all of a sudden is miraculously adequate enough to brush our teeth. And if it falls in the sink this time when you pour water over it, now we kind of look to our left and right. Oh, no one's looking. Like, you dive into the sink and scoop it back out.
It's funny because it's so true.
So true, right?
It's like that scarcity thing, like, you got to conserve.
Exactly. And that is the definition, what we just shared there. And when we laugh at it, it's because we live it.
Yeah.
That is the absolute definition of Parkinson's law. The more toothpaste that's available, we automatically consume and use more of it. But if the tube of toothpaste is almost empty, we automatically, two things get triggered. First, we're more conservative. We use one droplet. But we also, and more importantly, become innovative. You bend it. You bite it. Some people cut off the end of it. We do things that we wouldn't normally do when there's a full supply. Well, understanding that core principle of human behavior, that applies to money too. Most yoga studios, and this is true for all businesses, will have one, and I bet you both folks listening in right now have one or two bank accounts. All the money comes in there. All the money goes in that bank account. We then log into our bank account. We check out the balance, and you see all this money lumped in one spot. It's a full tube of toothpaste. Mm-hmm. Then our mind automatically kicks in and says, oh, good, I have enough money to do X, Y, Z. And we spend it. We use it excessively. We don't feel like we are. We just naturally spend it. We can afford to do this. We can afford to do that. If you first take your profit out and reserve it, you are now serving up to your business a near empty tube of toothpaste. And automatically, according to Parkinson's law, our behavior will change. We'll first be more frugal. That's important. You'll see that some costs you're spending aren't necessary. It's kind of a wake-up call. But I think even more importantly, we become more innovative. We start to look to accomplish the same result, but through different means. Cut off the back end of the toothpaste tube, bite the end. And we'll run our studio differently and more innovatively. And here's what I find most fascinating about successful businesses. The most successful business in any category are businesses that are the most innovative. So by taking your profit first, you are basically reverse engineering your way to become profitable, and you're forcing yourself and your business to be more frugal. That's important. And most importantly, to be more innovative. Find new ways to accomplish that profitability that you never considered before.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it relates to my life, and I can think about so many yoga teachers I know, as well as studio owners, that is so key with, because you can tell the people who are, there's a difference between a yoga teacher who has a 9-to-5 corporate job and just teaches yoga on the side versus the people who teach full time. Like, for example, I teach with a teacher, and he's always checking his email because he wants those extra subbing gigs. And he'll respond within, I'm not even kidding, like 30 to 90 seconds on an email.
Wow.
Like, he's just on it because he needs that extra class. He's like, yes, this is my spending cash in the week, because he's got to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Lynn Brown put us in touch, and, she works in the yoga space. She helps yoga studios do profit first. And I was talking with her, and what's fascinating is when you start allocating money toward profit and you have less money available to run your business, the changes that take place. One thing she was explaining to me is that many of these yoga studios that start taking their profit first become specialists. So they go down unique categories. Hot yoga, I know, is very popular now. But the innovators in that category were able to charge a premium for their service because it was unique and attract special customers. There were studios talking about doing thematic sessions, basically. So this one yoga studio, they did it called the tour series, and they paid a premium for this. And they said every session we're actually going to tour a different city. So, like tree pose, the tree posture, for example, was maybe the Empire State Building or Freedom Tower in New York City.
Oh, cool.
And then downward dog was the Brooklyn Bridge. So there was now a storytelling session that came in, and by doing this thematic kind of thing, they were able to attract a new customer that wanted to relive their experiences, and were able to charge a premium. But the funny thing that Lynn was telling me was that this studio, and I don't want to share their name, because I can't remember who they were now. But,
it's all good.
But what Lynn was saying was, by taking profit first, it forces them to think differently. In the old mentality, it's just, you got to make more money. You got to make more money. And so you just do more of what you've been doing. We try to work harder, doing what's working so far, but it becomes exhausting. You have to respond within 30 seconds, like you were explaining.
Yeah.
But when you start taking your profit first, now the game changes, because it feels like there's less money flowing into your business. Ironically, there's more money flowing into your pocket because you're allocating your profit first. You have to start thinking differently. And she was explaining to me, this studio and others become more profitable, and they actually start to grow faster because they have to figure out unique ways of achieving their numbers now, as opposed to the traditional ways of doing it.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And in terms of actually physically taking the profit first, do you have any suggestions for that? Like in terms of separating bank accounts or investing money or?
Yes. So, here's the rule. At your existing bank, I encourage, now in the book Profit First, I explain the more advanced model where we set up 5 accounts, but I encourage people, don't go full board. That's like if you took me to a yoga studio and you have me do some of these poses, it literally would snap me in half. You have to build my flexibility and strength to do certain things.
Yeah.
Right? So you start off slow. Profit First is the same way. If you go in the full bore and set up these different 5 accounts that I explain in the book and so forth, it's too intense. Here's the first step I encourage everyone to do. Go to your existing bank and set up one additional savings account. Call it Profit. And step 2, go to another bank, set up an account and call it Profit. And here's what's going to happen. Every time a deposit comes in, let's just say $100 comes in, we take a predetermined percentage. Let's just say 10%, just for round numbers. You would now take $10 and move it from that profit account. I'm sorry, from the typical account you use, move it to Profit. Then you contact the second bank. You can do this over the web, and you start a transfer. And then you move those $10 from your current bank to the other bank. Now, here's what happens. By when money arrives into our bank account, by immediately transferring that 10% into the profit account, it's like the envelope system. My mom, what she would do when she worked is she had literally physical envelopes at home. And she would come home with, say, $50 from that week's work, or $100 or whatever. She worked part-time. And she would put money into buying food. There was a food envelope. There was one for the give back to the community. She was a regular contributor to the community, so she'd allocate money for that. She'd allocate money for rent of the apartment, like all the different things. And the money would get divided up. Then when she would go food shopping, by the way, she always had enough money. The fascinating thing was it wasn't always the same amount of money, but when she got to the food store and opened up the envelope, whatever money was in there, she made do with what was there. So by simply dividing up the money into the profit account, we have immediate clarity on what we can run our business off of. That's the remainder, the stuff we didn't touch, and how much has been allocated to profit. So it puts things in envelopes and brings clarity.
Yeah.
The second step of moving into the second bank is it gets it out of sight and out of mind. If you don't see it and you don't think about it, you'll forget about it. And that's what we want. We want to run our business off of what's left and not even think about the profit. Down the road, when we look at that profit account, it's a wonderful day when you see how much money's accumulated. And the one little thing, because some people ask me, well, why don't I just transfer it from my first bank right to a profit account, my second bank? Why do I have to go through this little step of allocating it out? Bank transfers usually take 2 or 3 days, and that means you have 2 or 3 days of temptation. Yeah. If it's just sitting there, you may say, oh, I got that money, I need it anyway. Yeah. So by immediately transferring it to a different envelope, at least it tells you where the money is. Maybe it's still a little bit tempting, but at least you know what the money's predetermined for. And then within 2 or 3 days, it's out of sight and out of mind, and you're running your business as usual.
Yeah. I mean, I love the idea of, like, I know groceries for me are a huge expense. It's like something that I'm constantly like making an effort to cut down, because I mean, in the world of credit cards, like sometimes I leave the grocery store and I'm like, wait, how much was that?
Yes.
And I'm just like, yeah, here's my Visa. Like, you know, like I'm going to pay for my food. And it's something that I've really had to be active with. So I love the idea of like, I've only got $50 for food today and I am not spending over that. Like I can't.
Yeah. And the more visceral, meaning the more you experience it and the emotion in the moment, the more adherence there is to the behavior. So, for example, if you go to the grocery store and you leave the credit cards in your car and walk in with $50 of cash, I guarantee you'll always make it happen. And because there's the risk of the burn. You go up to the cashier and he runs it through and then he looks at you and says, okay, $60, ma'am. And you're like, only have $50 on me. We're very cognizant of the burn when there's a visceral, tactile experience.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's only going to happen to you once or twice. It's going to be
pretty
embarrassing.
Right. It's so embarrassing. So that then we are very cognitive of the decisions we make in the moment. So when you're in the aisle and you see the, I don't know, I'm just picking eggs, and you see the eggs that sell for $4.99 and you see the $3.99. When you have the credit card, it's like, oh, I want the $4.99, and we justify, oh, it's organic, they're cage free, it's better. But when we don't have the money, we say, well, it looks like they're basically the same, and I don't know if the other ones at $3.99 really, if there's much difference. I think I can do the $3.99. The conversation in our head always determines the outcome. So what we do with Profit First is we put guardrails around our behavior to force a different conversation in our head. And many times we'll find innovative decisions. The eggs, you may say, and I'm not saying this is the right solution for eggs, but you may say, actually, if I raise chickens and fed them, based on how many eggs I eat, it'll only cost me $1.99. And now, not only are they cage free, there's no injections, no hormones, no nothing. They're my chickens. And so the whole perspective changes, and you may find a whole more new, innovative way of doing things.
Yeah, definitely. I love that example with chickens. I wish I could have my own chickens so that my eggs never had any hormones in them. But
and that's why my sister did that, and she ran the numbers.
Cool.
Yeah, my sister did that, and here's what blew my mind. I came over for breakfast to her house, and eggs do not look like the ones that you buy in stores. When not outside, but not when you open them. The yolk was almost orange, like a bright orange. Mm-hmm. And I said, there's something wrong with your eggs. She goes, no, there's something wrong with all the eggs in the stores. And I was like, oh. And then she went on to explain how it's cheaper. Now they consume a lot of eggs and they actually sell them to her neighbors. And so the net effect is her cartons cost her less than $1.99, where the equivalent eggs aren't even available. And if they were, they'd cost such a premium. It's kind of surprising what you can do when you start to innovate.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just continuing with that example, I know Whole Foods does like a really good, they've got a couple really good brands of eggs, but they're like $6.50, like $6.49, I think, to get those eggs. And you'll get those orange yolks.
Yes. There you go.
But you've got to pay, like, that's so much money for eggs.
So much money. But I'll tell you, if you and I go to Whole Foods and we want good eggs and we have a credit card, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And we'll buy them. If we go to Whole Foods and we only have $50, it doesn't say we're going to compromise and get the cheap eggs at Walmart or whoever sells them. What we will say is there another way to get those Whole Foods eggs, but at way lower cost point? It'll force us to have a better conversation. And then we may say, hey, we should be growing our own chickens. Or maybe there's a farmer down the street that supplies Whole Foods. That's the guy supplying the eggs, and he supplies it at $3.99 to Whole Foods, and they're just marking up $3. So it just, when you have forced frugality, like the tube of toothpaste, you are forced to think innovatively, bend it, twist it, bite it. You see, when the credit card's there, you're giving yourself a full tube of toothpaste, and we default, as sinful as it is, we default to the easy path. Just buy it. And then we worry about it in the future. So that's how Profit First works. When you take the profit first, your entire business the way you think about it needs to change and be far more innovative. And I will tell you this, you can get the same or even better results than you have now with less money. You just have to be forced to start thinking that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I think that's great advice for people who are in the yoga industry.
Yeah. Thank you.
Something else that I really liked that I saw of yours online was talking about saturated markets. And I was wondering if you could touch on that because the yoga industry is so saturated. Like I'm currently located in Atlanta, Georgia, and there are hundreds of yoga studios. There's like thousands of yoga teachers.
Yeah.
So it's a very saturated market.
And let me ask you one question. Who's your customer? Like what would be a customer of yours?
Like me personally?
Yeah, for your yoga studio.
I guess like anyone who's interested in yoga.
Okay. And now I'm going to sound like a total jerk, but I'll tell you why the market's saturated. If the answer to that question starts with anyone who, will always be in a saturated market. Now, when I started I started a computer business and setting up computer networks. And I said anyone who needs computers is a perfect client. And there's millions of people out there.
Yeah.
But if we flip the side to the consumer, that's you, that means I'm a computer guy. I'm the generic guy. And there's millions of computer guys around. Just pick someone. And it forces downward price pressure. I mean, if I came to you and said, to fix your computer, Amanda, it's going to cost $100. And Geek Squad down the street says it'll cost $50. To you, computer guys are computer guys are computer guys. I'll choose Geek Squad, not Mike. Geek Squad's half the price.
Yeah.
So the phenomenon is called downward price pressure. And we as yoga studios, not that I have one, but just talking about the yoga studio community.
Yeah.
If you have a yoga studio and your answer is anyone who, you force yourself to be a commoditized offering because you're catering to anyone. And then people see you as the same. Like, to the consumer, a yoga studio is a yoga studio is a yoga studio. I'm going to go with the cheapest. It's always the two things, the cheapest price and or the closest and most convenient. Mm-hmm. So proximity and price. That's the death of us. But if you say, I only provide yoga services and then you pick a community, women who are in their third trimester, I only service to that community. Now something interesting happens. You have to modify your service offering to cater to the specialized and unique needs of that community. Certain poses have to go away. New ones need to be introduced. There's a purpose. There's going to be a baby coming about in the next month or two. So there is certain goals that need to be achieved. But now in that community, you're no longer a yoga specialist or a yoga provider. You are a specialist using yoga methodology to ease the transition into giving birth.
Yeah.
Now you can dictate a massive premium. Now you know who to target. Like, you don't run an ad in the newspaper or go to the local chamber of commerce and say, who wants yoga? You go right to the hospital and you go to the Lamaze teacher and you build rapport with her or him and say, hey, I have a yoga studio that specializes in third trimester women. I'd love to build a relationship with you and get introductions. It becomes very obvious who to market to. My best analogy, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, is doctors. I'm in New Jersey. And if you and I are having a conversation and you say, it just comes down to conversation, you have this cough that's happening. It's a weird cough. It's not going away. You're thinking about seeing the doctor. I can go on and laud about how wonderful my general practitioner here is in New Jersey. He's wonderful. He's so caring and attentive. He's a must-see. If I told you I can make an introduction, you would likely laugh at me. There's no freaking way I'm traveling to New Jersey to see your general practitioner. I got one in my neighborhood who's great. Mm-hmm. Proximity and price. Now, convenience is what plays in. Conversely, if that cough was actually indicative of heart disease, that you have a problem with one of your heart valves, and this is a deadly phenomena, you have to get this addressed by the world's best heart surgeon or a heart surgeon, and you and I are having the same conversation, and I say, oh my God, I have literally the world's best heart surgeon in the world for that exact heart ailment you're having. They're here in New Jersey. I can make a personal introduction. Would you want it? The answer is usually, hell yes. Yeah, I'll make the trip to New Jersey to get treated by the world's best to save my life. Mm-hmm. Here's the lesson. General practitioners attract the general audience that's looking for convenience and price. The specialist attracts the special audience who is willing and ready to pay a premium for a specialized and specific service. If your yoga studio serves anyone who, if that's the start of your line, you're screwed. You are screwed. Because you're a general practitioner. Yeah. If you say, my yoga studio specializes in XYZ, and it's very clear, third trimester women, runners with are recovering from injuries. I work with Olympic athletes, whatever it is. When you pick a specialized category, you will attract the elite of the elite. You're not going to appeal to everybody, but that's not the goal. You're going to attract to a specialized community who will, because their lives, quote unquote, depend on it. The success of the outcome is very important to them, will pay a massive premium. Yeah. So that's how you break out of that community. And here's the best part. My computer business, when I realized this, I no longer was the computer guy. I started catering to the hedge fund community. I became a hedge fund technology specialist. Overnight, I could only get $50 an hour because Geek Squad was forcing that on me. With hedge funds, I could get $250 an hour. Wow. And I was one of only 3 companies in the world that was catering only to this community. Overnight, I became perceived as an elite specialist because I spoke to only one community.
Cool. I love that. I think it's so easy to be like, like exactly like I said, like anyone who wants to practice yoga, I'll teach you. To specialize in that is just like taking your career in a whole different direction.
Yes. It's scary. Oh, I'm telling you, man, it's scary to commit to a category.
That's what I was thinking as you were talking. I was like, but what if I want to teach people that are not just third trimester women?
Right. And what if the community fails? What if like people say, I'm not going to have babies anymore and we're done? Which probably won't happen, but
probably not.
What if the community collapses? Here's the best part. When you commit to a niche, the first phase is not to exclude everybody. You're still going to attract your other customers. It is just to uber cater to that best customer and to only market to that community. So only speak in that community. Then when you start to get traction, meaning they start talking about you and more come in, then you make the decision, is this speaking to my life's purpose? Do I see significance in this? Then you devote more and more of your time and effort and resources to it. It's only in the final phase of committing to a niche that you then say no to all the others. The first step is simply communicating only to that one market and attracting them and then measuring how much you enjoy it.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. I love that. I do know that you have to go and I do want to be mindful of your time. So thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. I feel like I've learned so much in this last hour.
It was an absolute pleasure. I hope you learned and the folks listening and got some good tips they apply in their yoga studios.
Yeah, definitely. I think so.
Thank you.
Thank you. So hopefully everyone's enjoyed that awesome interview with Mike Michalowicz. If you want to find out more about Mike and his books and his concepts on entrepreneurship, you can visit MikeMichalowicz.com, and that's MICHALOWICZ. And I've actually put a link to his website as well as the websites for the books that he mentioned in the episode on the show notes at www.mbomyoga.com. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, please send me an email at info@mbomyoga.com. I'd love to hear from you. If you've been enjoying the podcast, please join the community on Facebook. It's facebook.com/mastering the business of yoga, or you can just look up MBOM Yoga and you'll find it pretty easily. And then if you want to get the weekly newsletter and be the first to know about new podcast episodes and that sort of thing, what's new on the blog, sign up for the newsletter at www.mbomyoga.com/newsletter. It's the newsletter tab right on the website. As always, thanks so much for listening. Bye now.